Welcome back to Rick's Scale Model Fix, and today I'm going to be taking a look in the box of the eagerly anticipated and long overdue Airfix 1/48 scale Jaguar Gr.1 Gr.1A boxing. Now this is a brand new build. The kit number for you is A11010, and it's got no relation to the previous incarnation that Airfix and Hella have offered in the past. The first thing that's really striking with the model is the sheer size of the box. So I've had to adapt slightly as the box doesn't fit on an A2 cutting mat, and it really belies the size of the aircraft, as the Jaguar, well, not small, it's not a massive aircraft. Opening the box, and some of the sprues are rather huge, so I've modified those, and in some circumstances they've got multiple sprues attached together, so I've just clipped them off just to make this review a little bit easier. So first impressions, it's a wonderful looking kit. It is moulded in the dark grey plastic. That will be a relief to many. This seems to be the standard fare for Airfix these days. So without further ado, let's take a look through the instruction booklet and see what we've got in the form of literature. So standard Airfix instructions. Decals and markings will come to separately, but there's a change to the design there that I've noticed straight away for the better. So first of all, we've got some diagrams, and it says, notes, apply underwing decals before attaching pylons and weapons. I think if you were building this kit you would realise that. It's not a kit for the absolute beginner, and we'll have a look through and see what skill level it is on the box, which I believe is skill level 4, so it's quite advanced. Turning the page, and we've got a position of internal decals and detailing. So this is very much akin to their 24 scale super kits, so a bit of thought's gone into this. So we've got quite an extensive decal suite there for the cockpit and even the seats, so it'll be interesting to just have a look at some of those and see if they are true to the nature of the decals. Certainly a Coltishore 128 on the decal sheet. Might be able to have a look at that in some references. Diving straight in, stage 1, we're building up the cockpit tub. It's nice to see that we have got cockpit consoles separately in the sidewalls. It makes painting a lot easier, as you can just paint the base colour and then come in with your sidewalls and console later. Makes masking and painting a lot easier. Just look as the two A and D, B and C schemes have different cockpit colours. I think the latter ones were black to aid night vision goggles. Looks to be a well appointed cockpit. Bulkhead looks quite well detailed. We've got a choice of 2 seats, so just make sure that you're selecting the right one for your build. I think we've got the early and later Martin Baker seats there. I think the Type 9's in the Jaguar. Over the page, and we're into the what looks like the nose gear bay. It looks well detailed, and furnishing the nose with some of the other details before bringing the two together. Now it says, if building scheme A, follow steps 17 to 21. If building schemes B, C and D, miss out steps and carry on. Right, so what we've got is the earlier Jaguar 1A, so that's not got the chisel nose. So what it sees you doing in essence is cutting off the chisel nose with some templates that are provided and making the modification there. So that is completed in 21A. So in theory, without looking through my extensive Jaguar reference, I could probably do a French one and even an Indian one from this kit. I'm sure, looking at the nature of the breakdown, that there's other kits coming, and we'll mention that as we go through. So we've certainly got a separate nose, lending itself to a T2 or a 2-seat variant at some point. Building up this nose section there finally concludes with the furnishing of the main wheel bays into the fuselage halves at the bottom of page 7. Over the page again sees the remaining internal structure being added and the fuselage halves coming together, and we've got some notes here saying just ensure these holes are aligned and just make sure everything's true. We've got some different variants there, so we're probably opening holes there just as a guess in step 37 for the chaff and flare buckets, and then we've got some additions there for the schemes that you are given in the kit, so you're going to need to make a decision on which one you are doing. Seems to be a standard way of doing the underbelly of the Jaguar with a separate plate in around the engine access covers there, and then we've got the nose sliding into the rear fuselage. Definitely two-seater on the cards with that arrangement there. Cannons, ventral fins, and a nice little guide there to show you the correct angle. Turning the page, and we've got the intakes, and it says building sequence, and we've got a jig provided to make sure you get those square. Disappointing to see that the blowing doors are moulded in the closed position. These being added to the kit, and then in step 48 opening up pylon holes for the pylons and the wings. Again, just make sure that you follow through with the build sequence for your model, and we've got bits to remove, so it's quite generic. Wings top section, a little note there to say that it's going to need clamping, so let's hopefully that's not just a workaround of a poor fit that they found on test building. Little spines and panels going in on the spine, and some of the intakes and everything there. And then we've got another indication that we've got an earlier and later, maybe a two-seater coming, in the fact that we've got the two types of tail, and we'll touch on this in the plastic, but we've just noticed you've got the late one with the radar warning receiver, and there's also the early one without included. Engines, pretty straightforward, being added to the kit. Tail cone and rear stabilisers. So yes, back in early one, chaff and flare buckets, over wing fences or sidewinder rails for both. Flaps can be positioned drooped by the looks of it, and slats deployed. So everything there that you would probably look for in the aftermarket. And then we're on with the undercarriage, and this looks a really complicated setup, so it's going to take time and pay dividends just to read through there and have a look, have a play with the parts one at a time and see how you get on. And the Jaguar undercarriage is quite a complex arrangement, so you want your angles right there to make sure that those wheels all touch the ground, with them being two wheels on each side. We've got weight on wheels, but the tyres, as my memory serves from Jaguar days, the tyres always looked a bit under-inflated, and I'll see if I can dig out some reference photos to highlight that. So we might be looking at some aftermarket wheels perhaps, but I'm sure these in the kit will give a general impression. Single nose wheel, two halves, and journeying onto the nose gear bay there, that thankfully can be added later in the build, and quite substantial tabs there by the looks of things as well. Moving on, and we've got the APU, I think there, it's trying to be depicted. Speed brakes, and I think we're looking at in the open or closed position, it doesn't actually say, so it'd be interesting to see as we go through with the build whether they can be closed. Undercarriage doors, usually when the engine's running the doors are closed, so that's catered for there. Doesn't look like you can do an in-flight model, there's no suggestion of building it without the undercarriage. I'm sure there's a reason for that. One of those might be those blowing doors not being moulded in the open position. Got the arrestor hook, other bits and pieces, lumps and bumps going on, nav lights, pitot tubes, aerial fit, so again pilot. Intake blanks is a nice touch, and then we've got the cockpit there and the canopies. It's quite an extensive build. Once the model's completed, we're looking at adding the underwing pylons, and we've got all the usual bits and pieces there associated with the Jaguar. So we've got retard bombs, freefall bombs, fuel tanks, no recce pod, surprisingly. Sidewinders on the over wing rails, completes your build. Wow, that really does look to be a full-on, really complex build. I'm sure it's going to look really good when that's completed. Now we have A4 glossy painting and decal guides. It does ooze quality in this model. So we've got sidewinders, ECM pods in both Desert Storm, colours of Desert Sand and Green. There is a recce pod, so it's the AMI reconnaissance pod, so that's included, so my mistake. On the back of that is blank. Then we've got the options included in the kit. This is the C scheme, Operation Granby, Desert Storm. Had to be Buster Gonad. I'm sure there was a lot of other aircraft on operations over there that they could have picked, but can't blame them for that one. 2 Squadron. It's Germany 1976. 6 Squadron Flying Can Openers, my favourite. 1990 to 94. And 54 Squadron in Scotland 74. So all in all, quite an attractive package of the earlier Jaguar schemes. No doubt there'll be a GR3 coming out with the camouflage grey schemes in due course. The decals are printed by Cartograph, quite extensive. You're gonna love the stencil data on these, and the different types for the different schemes is provided as well. So you've got the very, very basic Gulf War options right through to the full stenciled earlier airframes. All in all, quite nice. The colours for 6 Squadron look right as well, and the detail on the decals is quite good. If we zoom in, hopefully the camera can pick that up for the Gulf War aircraft there. So these sprues are actually enormous, so I'm having real difficulties fitting this in the camera frame. So this is sprue D in no particular order, and the edges of that speed brake are actually damaged, which is a shame. They are very, very thin, but I've just noticed that that's damaged, so that's not good. So that might be a bit that you want to look and check in your kit. I've just probably been unlucky. I did get 2, so we'll check those. The detail on these, the cabling, a little bit thick for the scale, but it's all there and it'll look good painted and with a wash applied. Here's all the wheels, and I'll try and find some photos and add them at this section of what these undercarriage gear and everything looks like on the Jaguar, but to me they don't look as though they're too inflated. Nose wheel, probably get away with that one, but we'll have a look. Might be just my memory here. It's a long time since I was around a Jaguar. This is C sprue, and we've got some of the flaps, ailerons, ventral strikes, leading edge slats with sink marks, and those 2-piece intakes with the intake auxiliary doors moulded firmly shut. Jet cans look reasonably well detailed, but there's room for improvement there, I think. Sprue F, it's got the drop tanks, pylons, which look reasonably well detailed. Those wing fences, pretty good for the scale in plastic. I think the only way you'd better those would be with etch. And you've got some pylons as well there at the bottom, and you've got those intake blanks, which are a nice addition, and they're labelled starboard and port. Smaller sprue G, this was attached to the other, so I've just broken this off for ease of handling for the review. Is all about the ejector seats, nicely contained on one sprue. 2-seater would only need another one of these sprues included. The Martin Baker seats are well represented, and with careful painting, dry brushing, etc., and a set of harnesses from the like of Edard, they would look stunning. Another smaller sprue which was attached to the main one we just looked at is sprue E, and this contains most of the smaller parts, such as intakes and fins and other bits and pieces dotted around the airframe. Again, a huge sprue, and this is the one that interests me the most. So we've got this separate nose piece, and clearly with that breakdown there is a two-seat version coming, and to me I think the two-seat Jaguar is quite a pretty looking aircraft and my preferred type. Instrument panel is reasonably well replicated. Hopefully the camera can pick that out. Plastic has got quite a bit of a shine to it. Sidewinders are quite nice. Fins as always are over scale. And we've got some general purpose bombs there. Chaff and flare buckets are devoid of any detail other than a wedge shaped bit of plastic. And then we've got the earlier Jaguar A nose included there as well. Sprue B, another real indicator of a two-seater. Why include two pilots? And this is where we've got the later tail with the radar warning receiver and the earlier tail without, which is also applicable to the T2. So hopefully Airfix won't keep us waiting too long for that. Some of the inside is a little bit rough. Might just need to file those ejector pin circles down before you make the wings, just to stop any interference of fit. Hopefully it all fits well, no reason why it shouldn't. And last but not least, the fuselage sections. I would go as far as to say the panel line and rivet detail on this is some of Airfix's best. We'll try and catch that in the light for you to capture it. And to give you an overall size, it's not a massive aircraft, so but nice sizable project, and should look really fantastic when it's built. Clear parts, which I'm not going to open just to save them damage, but we've got the two noses in there, the chisel nose and the round nose. HUD heads up displays, two actually included there. So there's another indicator that they plan a two-seater, and we've got some nav lights etc. on the secondary sprue. So that's the Jaguar. It looks to be an absolute beast of a kit. I'm sure it's going to look absolutely fantastic when it's built, and it's certainly got a little bit of room for improvement, but all the basics are there. And I'm going to now go and delve into my extensive Jaguar research and pick a scheme that I want to portray. The first one will probably be a Gulf War one, followed by a wraparound grey and green, and then a later two-tone grey. Maybe even a Balkans conflict in a single temporary finish of a medium sea grey type colour there. So there's plenty of marking options out there. Hopefully now there'll be a flood into the market, some aftermarket detailing sets and stuff, just to bring it even more of a stunning model, such as a cockpit. You certainly don't think you need any seats there. They look to be really good. So the proof, as they say, is in the eating, or the pudding. So it all looks good on the sprue. Let's hope the build looks as good as it does in the instruction booklet, and certainly one that I'll be getting on the bench in the very near future. So until then everybody, please look after yourselves, stay well and take care.